Greetings, YouTube. Pookster USMC back. My latest video. This is just a video response to a comment made by a user named Shake Bake. Apparently, he's Canadian and made a claim that they that Canadians have basically wasted. Although that isn't the wording that they use, Canadians have sacrificed is his actual word. They're have sacrificed their soldiers and their troops for the United States, and this is how a bankrupt United States repays them. Basically, my response to that was, first of all, what the hell are you talking about? I posted back a comment to him, and this is how it goes. It says, "I'm sorry, who is we?" And then I asked him, I says, "Is it Canada?" I says, "You say you've sacrificed your soldiers?" I said, "Would you please try extrapolating on that?" And then I asked him, I says, "Who expends 90% of the cost of the war in the Middle East, and who has incurred over 90% of all the casualties? And exactly how is America supposed to thank you for all of your quote-unquote help? What have you done to be thanked?" Now, statement got me a little riled because ignorant people like that are always they're always looking for a way to get noticed. Maybe he wants his 15 minutes in fame. Sure, fine. The problem is that Canada's involvement in Afghanistan isn't as direct support of the United States. Canada's involvement in Afghanistan is through NATO, North Atlantic Treaty Organization, which they're voluntary members of. Similarly, the way they're voluntary members of the United Nations, and yet back in 2008, I believe it was, they suspended all peacekeeping efforts involving the United Nations because I believe they stated that their economy couldn't handle it. Which, fine, your economy can't handle it. Fine, it's all voluntary anyway. So go ahead. What have you done to be thanked? The gentleman or lady that is, Shake Bake, whoever they are, they simply posted in a very broad manner. How exactly has Canada sacrificed its soldiers for America? Okay, like I said, going back to their involvement, it's not direct involvement with the United States. It's a NATO issue. They acted and supplied troops to NATO, and their troops and everything come under the control of NATO commanders, not the United States commanders, not the United States military in general, but NATO. The United States is also a party to NATO and has expanded and shipped troops through NATO in efforts to end the war in Afghanistan. We won't get into whether or not I believe the war is right. I'll just say this: I think America needs to back off, and I'm a firm believer of you're no good to nobody else if you're not any good to yourself. Okay, if you can't take care of yourself, you're not going to be able to take care of anybody else. And so, even though people will say it sounds selfish, it all starts at home, taking care of number one. Numero uno, take care of yourself. If you're no good to yourself, you're no good to anybody else. And that goes financially, emotionally. It applies to every facet of every type of relationship, whether it be a treaty or or an alliance relationship, where you band together and say, "Hey, look, this country is way out of line. It's threatened us. It's attacked this country. We're all banding together and saying, hey, we're not going to put up with this shit. Cut the crap." Okay. So that part of the rant being done and said, we'll move on. They sacrificed, now, like I said, Shake and Bake says, "We sacrificed our soldiers for America, and this is how bankrupt America thanks you." How? Exactly how is bankrupt America, in which we are pretty much bankrupt, how are we supposed to thank you? What are we supposed to do? Are we supposed to be responsible And America is its own worst enemy, and having taken on the role as the police force of the world through the United Nations and other means. What else is America supposed to do? Are we supposed to go ahead and say, hey, guess what? You supported the UN and you did this and you supplied this to the NATO troops. You supplied your troops to the NATO force, which I'll get to those numbers in a second because they're, oh my God, they're completely they're almost non-existent. But anyways, what is America supposed to do for you? What are we supposed to step back and say, hey, well, you know what? You've expended X amounts of millions or billions of dollars in the war. You know what? We're gonna pay that back to you. You supported us. We're gonna give that back to you. How are we supposed to? What are we supposed to do? You lost troops, so you know what? We're gonna go ahead and we're gonna take some of our citizenry that want to leave and would like to, and take volunteers and send them to Canada to replace your foreign troops, to replace your troops that died in a foreign land. How exactly are we supposed to repay you? What are we supposed to do? What is any nation responsible for doing by repaying another nation for them sacrificing their soldiers for it? Okay? I mean, this whole comment was broad, vague, and just utterly asinine, but I responded to it. And again, what have you done to be thanked? I mean, really, what do you want? I went on to say, idiots, and like I said, I'm very indignant when people attack the United States, regardless of whether we're right or wrong. I served. Okay, I served my country. I ended my active service back in 1996, but I served my country with respect and faithfulness because I believed and this is inconsequential, it doesn't really make it matter, but my family, okay, through bloodline, have been avid supporters of the Constitution, right down to and including the signing of the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution of the United States. Okay, I can trace my lineage back at least that far, and I've worked on that. I've worked on that over the years, and have been able to trace it back that far. So when somebody attacks the United States, I take personal offense to it. Okay, I love my country. I don't agree with its government or what its government's policies are, but my country is my country. I love it, and I stand and defend it. I have all my life, my family has, and I won't back down from the oath that I took that says, I swear to support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic. End of story. It didn't say until I end active service with the military branch of my choice, or until I see fit to stop supporting. It says I pledge to do that. I pledge to do that as a man, as a patriot, and as a citizen. End of story. So for you to sit here and tell me that basically me, my brothers and sisters in the services, owe somebody that hasn't put out the effort that we have in the same to support the same cause, and for them to basically sit there and say that we owe them, that boils my blood, And he says, we sacrificed our soldiers for America, and this is how bankrupt America thanks us. Thanks you for what? Let's go ahead with that. Let's move on so I don't start ranting. Okay. Canada volunteered troops through NATO for the war in Afghanistan. Okay. The news, the information that I'm about to post is per the troop numbers, is directly per the organization NATO. Okay, it comes directly from their statistics, nowhere else. It's completely unbiased. It's NATO says this is how many troops that each one of the countries that supplied. This is what they supplied in as far as troop numbers. Okay, I'll get the link to that article, and I'll go ahead and put it in the comments section underneath. But let's see, it says, as per NATO, July 6, 2009, Canada had allotted 2,800 troops to Afghanistan use. By comparison, the United States has 29,950 by the same date. As of June 6, 2011, Canada had upped its troops to 2,922. They upgraded troops by 122 in a year. 122 troops in a year. The United States went as far as to supply up to 90,000 as of July 6th or June 6, 2011. So an increase of 300% for the American people, and an increase of, and my math's not the greatest off the top of my head, but I think if I remember correctly, the article said it was an increase of like 2%, 1%. Come on. Just going by that alone, and not the money spent on the war in Afghanistan, okay, of which America has amassed the largest debt out of the entire nation, out of the entire NATO coalition. They have amassed the majority of financial funding and troop funding. Okay, so as by June 6, 2011, the United States had 90,000 troops. So let's compare 90,000 to 2,922 as of June 6, 2011. What exactly has Canada contributed? Okay, it's a contribution nonetheless. I'll grant that in its barest form, it's a contribution. But in the grand scheme of things, what has Canada done? How has Canada stepped up and bore the burden of financing and fighting that NATO coalition, movement? And that is not our interest in, or our wars in Iraq that we personally fight because of what they say stems from 9/11 and all that bullshit. But regardless, okay, let's look at the facts, and the facts state 2,922 troops as of June 6, 2011 for Canada. Hey, congratulations, Canada, stepping up. Over a period of a year, they went from 2,800 to 2,922. They upped it by 122 troops. Way to go, Canada. There's your thanks. By comparison, July 6, 2009, the United States had 29,950 troops on station in Afghanistan for the NATO coalition. And as of June 6, 2011, they had topped it off at 90,000. I'm sorry. Canada, you're right. You're right. We need to thank you. We need to thank you for that support. We really do. I mean, that's just, it's touching how you've come to our aid and supported us. Let's go even further, and let's discuss the financial cost. And this, in being the most fair that I could be, this is a Canadian publication. Okay, it's called the Rideau, RIDEAU Institute Report. It's a Canadian publication, and they published an article on October 10th of 2008. It says the total Canadian cost of the war in Afghanistan through NATO rise to slightly over $28 billion Canadian as of 2000.
Exactly, no. What we do know
Okay.
is the president has every incentive.
And the same article goes on to speak of Canada's withdrawal from UN peacekeeping efforts as well, citing their financial hardships. And in contrast, I want to go on. I want to read, because that same report that says Canada's costs were slightly over 28 billion Canadian dollars. The United States had costs as of the date that it was written of $641.7 billion. So 28 billion. Ooh, go Canada! $28 billion And that doesn't that all I want to say. These costs also include in Canada's $28 billion effort. Also includes their day-to-day running of their military. This is their entire military budget to date, including the cost of the war in Afghanistan through the NATO peacekeeping exercises and efforts. And the cost of the United States has had costs simply in the war in Afghanistan has borne $641.7 billion for their fiscal year of 2013. That's, that's their estimates. Like I said, this was written in 2008, so their estimates were slightly over $28 billion for Canadian, and that the U.S. has borne costs for the war in Afghanistan of $641.7 billion. And that's just for the war in Afghanistan, what we've given to the NATO. Okay, I thought it would have been a little bit different, but it wasn't. And
I want a tax increase too. What is that all about? I mean, we just had a huge tax increase that is already.
I find it. I find it offensive, but I also find it funny that someone would honestly try and argue and act indignant. They sacrificed, and out of those 2,000, I want to make sure I get the numbers right. Out of those 2,922 troops, those were the total stationed there. Those weren't even losses. Okay, those numbers don't include the losses that Canada incurred. Okay, Canadian soldiers, whatever it would, we didn't even go into, and I didn't even delve into the number of losses of troops that the Canadians incurred. But if all they had on station and all they had allocated to the NATO peacekeeping forces or the NATO coalition in Afghanistan, if all they had allocated was 2,922, the United States has lost more than that on a yearly basis. We're supposed to bend over and thank Canada for that? Okay, fine. Thank you. Thank you. There it is. That's about all you deserve. Okay? That's like somebody has a fund drive, to save a school or a historical building, and everybody else is coming out of the pocket with $20, $30, $50, $100, and you pull up in your Benz or your Lexus and you throw a $1 bill in the bucket. You took the time to donate. You took the time to involve yourself, but it's a half-hearted effort at best. You want thanks? Here it is. Thank you, Canada. There you go. Thank you for your 2,922 troops that you supplied directly to NATO for the war in Afghanistan. Thank you. Thank you for your slightly over $28 billion that includes your day-to-day running of your military, not just what you expended in Afghanistan through NATO. Thank you for that. Thank you. That's it. That's about all I had to say for that. I can't wait to see what this idiot posts. I look forward to these, and I encourage these type of posts for one reason, because in today's day and age, there's too much bad shit being reported. And every once in a while, you need a laugh. You need a moment of levity. And idiots like this, they supply the best laughter that you can find in today's day and age. And like my grandmother once told me, sweetheart, laughter is always the best medicine. Pooch USMC out.